All right, let's get started. I'm Nikita Shah, and I'm a customer success manager at aPriori. I've been working closely with Woodward over the past year on their initial implementation efforts and achieving ongoing success.
Hi, I'm Chris Plutz. I'm running the aPriori implementation at Woodward. Woodward's about a 150-year-old industrial and aerospace company headquartered out of Fort Collins, Colorado.
So we're going to start today by reviewing why several of our customers are really motivated to enter the world of product cost management and what it's like to get started with aPriori. We'll also then review some of the key elements the aPriori team focuses on with our year one customers. And then I'm going to transition it over to Chris so he can give you an overview of Woodward's first year with aPriori.
So when I was thinking about what to present in this conference, I was thinking back to when I was a prospective customer and really wanted to see what it took to get started with cost modeling efforts within your company. And I've not seen a presentation like this before, so I thought this would be a good one to put together for this presentation. So hopefully you'll find some insightful things as we walk through this one.
So by now you may have heard about why many are really motivated to collect, analyze, and use data within the product development lifecycle. And digitalization is one of those new buzzwords that we're hearing about time and time again, and focusing on it really has become an absolute must. If you aren't really taking action today, there is a possibility that you're falling behind. So you might be ready to take the leap, but you might be thinking, where do I start? And while it's important to get started quickly, it's really equally important to get started strategically as well. At aPriori, the customer success team is really focused on working with you and your team to put together a sound strategy for achieving success with our suite of products as quickly and as efficiently as possible. In year one, the aPriori success team will actually help you put together a plan to achieve your overall business goals. First, we'll align a year one strategy with those goals to ensure you can hit the ground running quickly and achieve what we call initial value. Elements of this plan could include using our technical expertise on our technical team to align your digital factory to perhaps the supply base, and applied services to really give you the best head start at using aPriori data in real world examples. Another element is success planning, and that offers guidance on things like change management, onboarding, and putting together an overall roadmap. Additionally, we'll jointly facilitate quarterly business reviews with your executive team to really ensure that there's executive engagement and alignment every 90 days, at least for that first year. Over the past year, we've used a lot of these elements while working with Woodward to ensure they've had a successful year one journey, and we're excited to have Chris here present the Woodward use case.
Okay, so in year one at Woodward, there was really two different areas we looked at: cost understanding and obviously supplier collaboration. So on the cost understanding side, we're working with a number of our suppliers right now, building joint digital factories, really looking at how can we shorten the RFQ response time, and really having good cost understanding of what we are buying. As a sourcing professional with 20 plus years in the market here, you've got to know what you're buying, what market you're within, really what are your target prices. We've done the three bids and a cloud of dust mentality for years in a lot of different companies, a lot of different industries. It's really not the best way to get to your final price. Obviously, do the bids, you get those back, you hope, you pray, you do whatever that you hit your cost targets. That's not really a way to be successful. So, really having good cost understanding where you should be, where those prices should come in at, is really imperative for all of us. The second piece of this is really supplier collaboration. So like I said, we're building joint digital factories with some key suppliers right now, really identifying the cost factors that obviously drive excessive costs in your purchase components out there. So there's a lot of different things you look at. You can look at lower cost regions, is the labor factors high enough to justify that? There's a lot of good stuff we've seen in the first year here.
What Chris and the Woodward team did really well is developing out and mapping out different needs and wants, and having multiple goals really has broadened the horizon for the ROI they've been able to achieve in this first year.
Okay, so how did we go about selling the concept of cost modeling within the company? So as I mentioned earlier, you really need to be the driver advocate for the effort. I myself sit in a corporate procurement organization, so that was a great spot to drive this from for my company. So my team and I created the idea, refined it over some time, and really what we wanted to do with this aPriori tool in the long run here. So what are some of the benefits you can derive from this? Really understanding the scope of what we wanted to go after, meeting with internal stakeholders or potential customers internally, really asking what they wanted to see from this effort. And then it was really, came up to building the pitch, right? ROI is always going to be important, so you've got to make sure you hit that piece of it. I went to 3 or 4 different cost insight conferences over the last 4 or 5 years, really talked to a lot of folks, found out what they have on their roadmaps, what worked or what didn't work when they did their initial implementation, a lot of benchmarking activities also. So, some really good stuff. And then once we had the pitch built, we, did a number of tests on that, delivered the pitch numerous times. I can't even tell you how many times I delivered those pitches. And then, the final part was just making sure you had executive sponsorship. So I actually have 2 executive sponsors. I have our Chief Procurement Officer and our Chief Technology Officer. So that really helped knock down a lot of roadblocks and move this thing forward. So what's a year 1 implementation look like? So we didn't start large. We started with 10 licenses, node licenses in this case. Training, a lot of training. Don't underestimate the number of hours of training for this software. The more training you put in now, the better results you get later. So make sure you hit that when you're looking at the implementation. So that goes into a number of other things, internal processes. We actually created a single location for all the model requests that were coming in. This was very important because that helped us understand what the volume is and how many licenses we might need in the future. So we've got that. There's all kind of metrics that come out of that, which is really good. We actually put together some web-based training internally so people understood how the models could be requested and used. So that was very, very useful for our implementation here. Then about 4 or 5 months into it, we realized we needed to expand from just the machining module to castings, forging, and 2 model machining. So something that we didn't identify initially, but became very important a couple months into it. So another nice add. Like I said, marketing. You're always going to be doing marketing. If you're the kind of lead implementation person on this, don't underestimate the number of hours of marketing. There's always going to be people hitting you up, looking for information, looking for help on certain programs, what have you. So marketing is definitely important. Then working with the supply base, obviously. So we're doing that pretty extensively right now with key suppliers. So we're actually building out joint digital factories within the aPriori tool, which ultimately will lead us to kind of that 0-day RFQ or self-quoting initiative. So that's hopefully coming up in year 2 here, but that's definitely being worked on right now. And then, a couple other things, kind of benchmarking the results from the software with some of the stuff we do inside our 4 walls. So we've done a number of those, kind of validate what we were getting from aPriori, matches what we were doing internally. So that's another good data point. And then the last piece is just continue benchmarking with other aPriori users. So we actually joined the aPriori User Council about 4 or 5 months ago, and that's a pretty nice organization by itself. So next piece of this, and this is kind of another high-level look at that last slide, but institutionalizing the effort, right? So we didn't want this to be a fly-by-night effort here that just happened and was good for a couple months and then faded away. So a number of things we looked at here. Obviously, the tools we talked about, internal processes. You've got to have your internal processes documented for what you're going to do. ROI or metrics also become a very important piece of this. How long are models taking to turn? What's the turnaround time on them? What kind of opportunities you're identifying? What kind of opportunities you've actually brought across the finish line? All that's really important things to have in place when you're driving your effort here. User training, like I said, we've trained the what we call subject matter experts, who are the ones running the software. And then we've also trained the users who request the models. How do you negotiate with it? What do you understand from it? Is there design features that should be looked at or changed? What's driving your cost on your item? All very important things to look at. So next piece was usage. Who's using the software? Who's requesting the models? A lot of the beginning part started with sourcing professionals. We've definitely rolled that into more on the design side now, catching a lot of those design, we'll call them challenges, early on before they actually get into a final design and out to the market. So some very good stuff happening on that. We're actually going to, in FY22, start doing the cost insight generate opportunity. So that's going to be another new one coming up for us here shortly. And then obviously just maintaining your cadence and your check-in with your executive sponsors and your corporate steering committees or whatever you call them at your company.
Thanks, Chris. I'll just add a quick point here. It's the customers that really embed aPriori within their business processes that have gotten the best ROI and the best value for the tool. Those who are making it an optional process and not embedding it into the day-to-day for their product development don't often see the amount of ROI as they could potentially get. And it's really important to go in with that mindset when you're developing out your year one plan.
Okay, so moving on. So what do I have planned for year two, or what do we have planned for year two? So we've noticed a couple things out of the results from year one. Right now we're using node-based licenses on individuals' desktops. So we're going to quickly here move to the cloud for the cloud-based version of the software. So that's probably the biggest thing we have coming up this year. And then in conjunction, but not necessarily an aPriori driven effort, is kind of model-based design or model-based engineering, right? Having all your tolerancing in your CAD or Creo or whatever files, right? So we've noticed that needs to be the next thing. Luckily enough, we actually had an initiative going on already to implement that. I think it's going to get accelerated now with some of the stuff we're bringing in with aPriori opportunities. Automated tracking of ROIs. So we actually used a Power BI report that handles this for us, which is very, very powerful and very, very useful, and it shows kind of the so what part of aPriori. You've done models, so what? Well, here's what we're seeing. So kind of going forward here, we're going to probably expand with some more dedicated members into the cost modeling organization. Next piece of this is really those joint digital factories, as I talked about before, really identifying our key suppliers and building out those factories within aPriori, so we can make a supplier selection even before the part's designed, ideally. So that should be a interesting one coming up here in the next handful of months. RFQ time. Admittedly, the way we do it today, it's many weeks or even many months, depending on the complexity of the item. We're trying to get that down to about a 1 week turnaround time. So that will definitely help us on schedule items, especially on the NPI side. And then, as I said before, the cost insight generate. So we're going to tie this into our PLM system and be able to do those models ideally overnight, and then kind of track the associated design change and cost impacts as they go through that design process. So.
Thanks, Chris. We really strive with our customers in year one to not just think about that first year, but have a plan set for years even 2 through 5. It's really important to start thinking big and really incorporating details from the future into your plans today so that you can grow as quickly and scale as quickly as possible.
So just a little bit more about that cost insight generate. This is one of the things we're really looking at right now. Obviously, this is a aPriori slide on the left side here, but using an example part, that thing gets checked into your PLM system overnight. Even if it's not released, it's checked in. We're going to use the cost insight generate capability to run models overnight, essentially in the cloud, and then it's going to email out to the designer and the sourcing professionals or whoever we want on that distribution. Hey, this is your current estimated cost. Here's your 5-10 things to go look at that are driving your cost on those items. We think we can actually use this to track the estimated part cost while it's in the design phase. Admittedly, a lot of companies lose a little bit of visibility during this design phase, so we're hoping we can tighten this up going into the the second half of this next year. So key takeaways. I get asked this quite often. What was your key takeaways from year one? My recommendation is have at least a 5-year roadmap. There's a lot of neat things you can do with aPriori, and you can't do them all on day one. So really have a plan. What are you going to work on? What you're going to get your processes in place. You're going to get some of the other basic fundamentals put together. Obviously, training. I can't say training enough. Getting this stuff in place in year one, so you really have a good start for your years 2 through 5. Next one is, what does success look like? We had a couple of key drivers that we were going after this first year. We were able to hit most of those, which was great. And then obviously expanding it into years two and going forward. So next one is knowing your internal customers, needs and wants. You always want to try to satisfy the needs and kind of do your best on the wants. I think we've done a good job with the needs that our customers have for this year. There are a number of wants, and some of those do get added to the roadmap for future enhancements in the next couple of years. Next one is clearly identify scope, schedule, and budget. If any project manager knows this, you've got to know what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, and who's going to do it, and what's it going to cost. So don't miss out on that. And then finally, a roadmap's a roadmap. A plan is a plan, but things do change. So don't be afraid to deviate. If something else pops up, or a new opportunity from aPriori pops up, or a new module or something that you didn't have on your roadmap at first, and it makes sense, take a look at it. We've made numerous small modifications throughout the first year. We pulled a lot of things to the left on the schedule that we had planned for year 2 and year 3, and we're already doing some of those things. It's been a good year. We're very happy with what we've got done in the first year. And finally, everyone always wants to know, what would I have done differently? So a couple things, admittedly, that I did not do, or due to the level of detail that I probably should have. The reporting capability within CIR. There's a lot of different reports in there, a lot of different capability. We played around with a little bit. We did not get that deep into it in year 1. That's on the roadmap for year 2. Hopefully we can learn more about that and get some more value out of that module, or that opportunity, or that capability. The other piece on this is making sure that you're really reporting out on your return on investment. Software is never cheap, but if you can use it correctly to get the benefits that your company's looking for, the ROI will be there for you. And finally, everyone always hears this, but go slow to go fast. Make sure you know what you're putting in place as you're developing out your processes and your capabilities, and it will speed up as you get going.
Thanks, Chris. This has been a really insightful presentation by Woodward, and I hope those of you out there hoping to move forward with your year 1 soon really take some of these points into consideration. They've had a really successful year 1, and we're looking forward to see what they do next.